LOL take two. LOL take two. LOL take two. Now listen. You know, somewhere along the road, I discovered the value of lists. Of course, most everybody uses lists to a certain degree, but sometimes I admit it, I go a little list crazy. A list of things to do today, my Costco shopping list grouped by aisle and free samples. A list of things I want to accomplish this year grouped by category. To quote Bill, your lists have lists, and you know, how dare he judge me, but yeah, that's kind of true. I suppose this obsession with minutia goes back to my having my own theater company in my garage with my best friend Tony while growing up in suburban Des Moines, Iowa. And we didn't plan just one show in the garage theater. No. We planned an entire season and even sold season tickets. I wrote and designed the brochures for our season, and when the neighbors didn't line up at the box office we had set up in my driveway, I engaged my sister Robin to go door-to-door peddling AV Theater season tickets. Robin had a bit of a stutter when she got nervous, and that season's plays had a lot of S's in their titles. The Impossible Years, The Star-Spangled Girl. We weren't expecting much, but an hour later, Robin came back with a stack of money, having sold most of the tickets. Great job, Robin. Now, go hit up the folks on 72nd Street. Unfortunately, our plans were halted when a neighbor called my mom complaining that I was forcing Robin to hawk tickets, and Mom said we had to knock it off. Tony and I used to sit after school drinking major quantities of Coca-Cola, listening to records and planning and imagining all the details of the glamorous lives we would have when we were famous actors in Hollywood. An early act of independence when we were 15 was taking the Greyhound bus to Sioux City, Iowa, and staying with my grandmother for a few days. It was a small enough town that we were given free rein and would take the city bus downtown to the Green Gables restaurant for their famous hot fudge sundae. One of our favorite activities while visiting Grandma May was pretending we were adults and going grocery shopping at Harold's, the local store down the street. We would grab a cart and go up and down the aisles, putting things in that we would eventually be shopping for when we were Hollywood stars, including, among other things, shower-to-shower body powder, Seabreeze Sensitive Skin Astringent, as well as Body on Tap shampoo, which had just come out and had real beer in it. Then we get to the last aisle. We'd abandon the cart, buy some Spree's candy, and leave all that merchandise for some poor Harold's employee to put back. What wretched children we were. After 5 years studying for my theater degree at the University of Minnesota, I had to make a decision on where to go next, and Hollywood it was. I had experienced working professionally on stage and in TV commercials while in the hopping city of Minneapolis. Hell, I even had my union card before I went to LA. I was set. And my plan was, like the thousands of others who arrive each month from somewhere else that once settled in LA, it was only a very short time before I would be starring in a big hit TV show. Those best laid plans had been set back at the AV Theater. LA is a little bigger than Minneapolis by about, 9 million people. Thankfully, I moved out with my college friend Katie and her best friend Mary Lynn. And let's face it, when you go from a medium fish in a medium pond to a microorganism in a friggin' ocean, it's very easy to get lost, so it helps if you're lost with some people you already know. The girls and I found an apartment by the La Brea tar pits, and our landlord's son, Dimitri, saw to it that it was freshly painted when we moved in. Dimitri had the hots for the girls, and he was a good-looking kid, but unfortunately didn't have a chance because he always wore white jeans with big yellow pea stains on them. The girls each got a bedroom, and I slept in the dining room. I had no bed, nor any money to buy one, so I got the cheapest waterbed I could find. It cost $75 and sat in a plywood frame on the floor. It was basically a hefty garbage bag filled with cold water. And any time you moved or were making out with a date you brought back to the apartment, it was like the last hour of the movie Titanic. I should have offered my dates Dramamine. Our building contained an interesting collection of other Hollywood newcomers trying to find their own ways. Below us, we had this sort of pompous gay guy named Tom, with an H, whom I called Thom, who spoke like Thurston Howell III and lived with a straight couple who had very loud sex, but complained about my sloshing waterbed above. Across the hall, we had a girl named Christina who tried to commit suicide by putting her head in the oven, but didn't blow out the pilot light and as a result burned her hair. A girl I used to do open mic nights with, Mary Margaret, left Hollywood after a year because her survival job of cleaning houses just wasn't working out. Turns out everybody had their own best-laid plans, and some bailed on them sooner than later. It seemed like everybody was looking to gurus for inspiration in those days, and my friend Linda gave me her old set of Tony Robbins tapes. He was the self-help guru of all gurus in the 90s. I mean, there was some interesting stuff on them, like neuro-linguistic programming and living with passion, something that had really never been an issue with me. But his tapes really made you work. He had you do a lengthy goal-setting workshop and put due dates on when they would all be accomplished. He then made you take them out weekly and monthly so you could really see how little you were accomplishing. I worked at a night word processing job at a law firm, and one of our attorneys was a Tony Robbins groupie named Randy. I mean, this guy was making big bucks as a big corporate attorney, yet obviously still felt unfulfilled. Poor Randy spent thousands of dollars to go to Hawaii for Tony Robbins' Firewalk weekend. He and a bunch of other groupies worked themselves into a frenzy, allegedly overcoming their inner obstacles, and walked barefoot across a 30-foot sidewalk piled with burning hot coals. Poor Randy came back with third-degree burns on his feet, and not long after that, he left the big, powerful law firm. I never knew what his best-laid plans were, but obviously he hadn't achieved them. I then discovered the diaries of the British actor, composer, writer Noel Coward, and I found my true guru. He had been around 80 years ago and had done it all. He had written plays, musicals, novels, short stories, composed, starred and directed, and traveled the world. All stuff I like to do. Sure, he had great success, but he also experienced frustration and failures that he candidly and, more importantly to me, humorously wrote about in his diaries. I read them and thought, wow, I have felt just like this, and if Noel could pick himself up and move on, and so can I. Damn it. His misery was inspiring to me. Katharine Hepburn had also just published a memoir of lessons she had learned in her life called Me, and I love that as well. One of Kate's favorite quotes by George Bernard Shaw became my mantra. This is the true joy in life. The being used for purpose, recognized by yourself as a mighty one, the being thoroughly worn out before you were thrown on the scrap heap, the being a force of nature instead of a feverish, selfish little clod of ailments and grievances complaining that the world will not devote itself to making you happy. Interesting. Now, I am generally not an unhappy person, but the world certainly wasn't always devoting itself to making me happy either. I didn't have that TV series that was at the top of my goal list, but I had booked a ton of TV commercials and a bunch of primetime TV shows, and as a result, I have accumulated almost 2 decades of a pension. My life wasn't too bad either. Great husband, great friends and family. Dreaming and making plans is really a lot of fun, but while you're doing it, you find life keeps racing on, faster and faster. I began to realize that best laid plans are just that, plans, that are best laid in a drawer. And then you go for a walk, or you pet your dog. In other words, go live your life. It is awfully fun years later to pull those old angst-ridden goal lists out of that drawer and see that a lot of those things came to fruition without my stressing about them or beating myself up over them. Amazing how that worked out. Not to mention that I avoided spending thousands of dollars on firewalks and burned feet. But I must confess that every once in a while, just as I imagined when I was a kid, I make my grocery list. drive my car to my glamorous Hollywood adjacent grocery store in Burbank, and somewhere around aisle 13 will toss a bottle of Seabreeze Sensitive Skin Astringent into my cart, just like at Harold's grocery store all those decades ago. Only now, I'll pay for it at the checkout. Because I can.
LOL take two. LOL take two. LOL take two.